what will be the starting five for the San Antonio Spurs this upcoming season.
You are Locked On Spurs, your daily San Antonio Spurs podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Spurs, right here on the Locked On NBA Network. I'm your host, Jeff Garcia, Spurs writer for Kens 5 San Antonio. Hey, training camp day one is in the books yesterday. The guys got some sweat going, getting ready for the first preseason game, which is just, Sunday? I mean, that's just crazy. But before that game, we got a lot to talk about. During Media Day, Popovich spoke about the starting five, specifically just saying that Jakob Poeltl is the only lock who should be in that starting unit. We're going to go over some Media Day takeaways. Yes, there's a little bit more to talk about that event, as well as some discussion about the Austin Spurs system. And, of course, the San Antonio Spurs loving that trip to send up rookies back and forth. Before we get into it, thanks for making Locked On Spurs your first listen each and every day, free and available where we have podcasts. He is back, and, I still owe you an episode where I take a day off. Casey, I haven't forgot about that. He is Casey Viera with Kens 5 San Antonio. Casey, welcome back.
Well, you don't owe me anything. That was, me trying to lighten your load a little bit / provide you a different way to get some different content up there and during the dull season. But now that things are back in full swing, man,
I wanted to bank it. So when it does get hectic, then you know what? I can't. I need a day off. Then I turn it over to Casey.
That's fair. I'll take you up on it either way.
Oh, yeah. I know you will. You do a bang-up job whenever you take the reins here at Locked On Spurs. It's been a while since you've done that, right? I think it was
draft night. No,
draft
I think
night,
I did.
Yeah.
I think I did one. Done one on a draft night. I can't remember. Somewhere over the summertime, I believe.
Yeah, usually on draft night is where I tap your shoulder to come on board. Yeah, those are the days you can kind of
tough.
But yeah. Then again, I can't imagine this season getting crazy where I need help, because you can pretty much predict the entire season right now. This is going to be the entire media sessions, pre-post, Popovich chats, pre-post games. It's young, getting better. We're not making the playoffs. We're not making the finals. Baby steps, rebuild. That's pretty much the season, isn't it?
Well, considering the boss said that, yeah, I would kind of think so, Considering the guy running the whole thing basically said that's what it's going to be. Yeah, I think that's fair to say. I've
been dreading the future Locked On Spurs once the season gets going, thinking how much can I chat about growth and development? Seriously. How can I, for me to even talk about, okay, let's discuss the growth of Blake Wesley. I would have to have a good sample size for that. A week worth of game ain't going to cut it. So I'll have to wait maybe a month after before we really get something to chew on for these guys. Yeah. That should be a signal to everybody. It's going to be a very long season. But once again, he is Casey Viera with Kens 5 San Antonio. Make sure to follow him on Twitter at Casey_Viera. And he's going to tell you his impressions about Media Day. He was there. Casey asked me before he went if I was going to go to Media Day. And I pretty much did the same thing with Casey. I go, no, Casey, I can tell you what Media Day is going to be about right now. And exactly what Popovich and most of the players said. But we're going to get his impressions of what the team had to say. But first, speaking of Media Day, Popovich had something interesting to say, and that was about the starting unit. He was asked about if he had any thoughts on who's going to be in that starting five, and he kind of chuckled and just said, hey, it's just Jakob, and that's it. But Casey, I thought we kind of knew who the usual suspects are going to be. Your Devin Vassell's, your Keldon Johnson. Why do you think he said that, and who do you have in your starting unit?
I think part of the reason he said that, I think, is kind of fine print because we don't want to entirely bank on Keldon Johnson being back. Mm-hmm. So I think, back in terms of opening night, I think that was part of it. The other part of it, I think, was the fact that it's true. It's true, right? I mean, in reality, we know Keldon Johnson's going to be the starter. You know, when he is healthy, Keldon Johnson will be in that lineup. Now, everybody else, I don't know. I mean, you have your front runners that you can have in mind at each of the positions, but anyone concrete, can we say that it's going to be the case? No.
No.
No,
Yeah.
not really, not at all. And
You
I
would have
think
put
that
Devin Vassell in that lump as far as concrete?
I would say very close to it. Maybe not. Maybe cement being mixed. Maybe not
Mm-hmm.
full concrete. Um,
Okay.
because crazier things have happened. I mean, whether he's, I think it's more so a matter of he's going to get a majority of the minutes, whether it's him in the actual starting five or not. I think it's a little bit different, but I'm not betting against. Put it this way, I'm not betting against him being the opening night 2-3. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I think right now you have probably 3 out of those 5 starting positions in Pirtle, obviously at the 5,
Right.
Keldon at one of the forwards, and Vassell, one of the guard / forward spots. But
Right.
like we've talked about, points, who knows, and that 4th spot for position, who knows? So yeah, I mean, this is everything. This is Pop confirming basically everything we've been saying all along.
Yeah, I'm going to toss out my starting 5 and get your thoughts on this. Pirtle,
Okay.
Keldon, Devin, Trey Jones, and McDermott. Does that sound safe?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's reasonable. I tend to lean the way a little bit more of Primo instead of Trey Jones, mainly because there at least appears to be more of an investment from the Spurs of getting Primo's face out there. So I can't imagine them making him, for lack of a better term in this context, one of the guys to sell the product and then have him come off the bench. I would tend to lean more on the Primo front, but on the other side of the spectrum, Trey Jones is the only true point guard on the team, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that's it. Occasionally we've seen, Devin, maybe Keldon. I know Keldon's always been saying since, he came on board with Spurs that he wants to be a better facilitator, but he really hasn't blossomed to that. And I think with the lost weight, the minus 21 pounds, he said at Media Day, coupled with the fact that he's going to be the face of the franchise, I think they'll use him in a different way. None of this point forward stuff. But we everybody knows that it's really the point guard spot that's kind of in flux right now. To Josh Primo's credit, that is, he bulked up. It was noticeable during Media Day. He's acting like as if he's been in the league for 20 years now, talking about advice he's already giving to the players, the new players, and how to handle Popovich in the NBA life. So he seems ready, but I don't know if Popovich and the coaching staff are ready to give him the starting job. Now, we saw it on and off last season, but I'm not there yet to say, Casey, that it's a permanent thing if the Spurs go with him on opening night.
Well, I think another thing here to keep in mind, too, that we're not really talking about is if we keep an eye on what they're feeling about Blake Wesley in the next coming weeks, so to speak, and maybe not on opening night, but mainly earlier in the season or just in general, because if he shows that he can give you competent minutes, couldn't you see a scenario where I'm not implying that Blake Wesley's going to start, but see a scenario where you have Trey Jones starting at point, Primo starting starting off the ball at the 2, and Wesley essentially is your first point guard off the bench. I think that's another scenario to keep in mind. I mean, we might both be right about this one, that both Trey Jones and Primo are going to be in the starting lineup. And I think a lot of that is contingent on whether they can count on Blake Wesley to give you reasonable, sustainable minutes off the bench as a point guard. But opening night, that might be a little bit of an ambitious task to ask upon. But a little bit later down the road, I could probably see it.
Well, a couple of things on that, on Wesley, and then just the starting unit. Wesley plays with a chip on his shoulder. He told me on Brooklyn and draft night that one thing that really, in his opinion, that really got him selected by San Antonio was his style of play / I'm out to destroy the world because I hate that everybody's discounting me mentality. Because he said he did his workouts with the Spurs, and in that workout, he was lumped in with some of the upper crust picks. Those are going to likely go to top 1 through 15. And he said that he hated that, and that got him motivated to do well. And he thinks it helped him tremendously in his draft night and going to San Antonio. So there's that. So yeah, my point is, I wouldn't be surprised if he carries that type of mentality to training camp and says, "Oh, I'm going to let some other 19, 20-year-old kid, Josh Primo, beat me out." Hell no. Who is this Trey Jones who can't even, who doesn't like the shot? I'm more of a modern day guard. I think we've heard him say that time and time again. He's the modern NBA guard. Who's this guy? So I can see him coming in with that type of mentality and actually kind of wake the Spurs coaching staff to say, you know what, maybe there's something here. We'll talk about the Austin Spurs in just a bit, that path as well. But another wrench in all this is, would you be surprised if the starting lineup on open night features Sohan? He keeps on talking about how he's switchable. He keeps on talking about he can do a little bit of everything. He keeps on talking about how he said it on media day that he's going to piss people off on the court like Dennis Rodman. I wouldn't be surprised to see him get out there.
Neither would I. I'm just kind of going, I mean, in reality, he should be the guy who's out there opening night as the number, as a lottery pick, as a top 10 pick. He should be the guy, but I'm just kind of going off history, and mind you, it might be a different sort of, I guess, it might not be entirely fair to go off history given the circumstance, but I'm going off the history of Pop relying on the vets early on in the season. In this case, the earliest of the season. I'm going primarily off that, but if they are fully committed to a lot of the things that they're saying, I don't want to say how Pop divert from old tendencies, because I don't think that'll never happen, nor is it necessarily fair to really ask of such. I'm still banking on opening night being McDermott or Collins at the 4. Right. But in reality, if I had to do it, if this was me making the call, I would put Sohan there.
Absolutely.
I would definitely make Sohan one of the guys, but I just don't think that, knowing how they operate, I don't think that's going to be the case.
And that's a great way to segue into our next segment when we get back, is speaking of that operation that they've been showing in history, the San Antonio Austin connection. Will the Spurs perhaps completely abandon the Austin Spurs G League track, or continue hammering that in this rebuild that just starts in just a few short weeks? But I want to talk to you about betonline.net, your number one source for football betting info this season. You can find all the latest player developments, team matchup news, podcasts, and in-depth articles and analysis on every game you can find. As always, BetOnline remains your continued source for all your sport wagering information, with live betting, up-to-the-minute scores for every sport out there. The fastest and easiest way to check in all your favorite games, events, including MLB, boxing, MMA, golf. And apparently, you want to go to BetOnline because Popovich is so sure the Spurs are going to win the title. Go see what those title odds are for San Antonio over at betonline.net. So go there right now. You got yourself a mobile device. Learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. We're back with Casey Viera. He is with Ken's 5 San Antonio. We're discussing all things silver and black as training camp is underway and media day is in the books. And speaking of media day, Casey, Popovich was very clear that this is a developmental season, that, we're going to go out there and let them loose, throw them into the fire. Well, part of throwing them into the fire is into the NBA fires. But historically, the Spurs have thrown a lot of the young guys into the G League Austin Spurs fires. Based on what you sensed during Popovich's conference with you all there in San Antonio and media day, did you get a feeling that perhaps this Austin San Antonio back and forth with the young guys is going to cease or just be severely lessened?
I think cease is probably a little strong. Mainly because I just think there's too many young bodies that are there that they want to get playing time for, and there's just not going to be enough minutes.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess a different philosophical approach, maybe that's the more modest way
right.
of referring to it. Definitely.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, and one thing that Popovich made very clear is that this is a rebuilding season, a season of growth, of development, and interesting. About the only interesting thing, in my opinion, that he said during his conversation was, whoever comes after me is in a good spot. Now, that was the first time I ever heard him talk about his coaching future.
I was just going to say, I have never heard him implied. I've never heard him make any sort of, hint to that.
Exactly.
Not once. Yeah, not once.
So if this could be it, and again, we're just speculating based on what Popovich said, then perhaps the best way to set a good foundation before he hangs it up is to make sure these guys get a bulk of their seasoning in the NBA versus the G League. Now, I get it. The Austin Spurs are kind of want to have their nights where they're going to be featuring the Spurs rookies. They got to sell tickets and merchandise. So I wouldn't put it past them to spend maybe a week out there in Austin, maybe one at a time or, something like that. But I'm going to be more shocked if their bulk of their rookie season is in San Antonio. Now, I'm talking about obviously Wesley and Malachi and Sohan. Your Dominic Barlows. Yeah, I expect them in Austin. Your Jordan Hall, Austin. Your what is that? Tommy Kuhse in Austin. My goodness, I'm thinking about the Spurs roster now, Casey. Who are these guys? But
what's funny, Jeff? That yesterday, and again, I have never seen them do this before, and they pretty much implied that they've never done this before. They were giving out pieces of they were giving out player I guess what's the word I'm looking for? Basically, they were giving out sheets of paper. Yeah, that had headshots of the players.
Wow.
They had headshots of the players.
That's
crazy. I have never seen that done before, ever.
Wow. It's new times in San Antonio, but I mean, that's not a sign. I don't know what is going to tell you. It's a sign. It's times are changing in San Antonio, but part of that change in the rebuild is this, perhaps the lessening or at least heavy use of the G League, San Antonio NBA, I-35 connection there, because that's common from Lonnie Walker to DeJounte, to many in the past. They've done that trip back and forth, their first year, second year. But I really think philosophically, they have to just ease back on that, because this team, they have to invest in development. And I get that, but they got to keep up with the Joneses in the NBA, Casey. It's a delicate balance.
It is. But I think they're finally aware of that. I think they are. I think they're finally aware, and maybe that might just be me being a little optimistic here. But yesterday felt different. Yesterday felt like a group that is finally aware of what they are. Even last year, even last year, a lot of the things that they were starting the season is, we hope to make the playoffs this year. Yeah. And not that I would go out there and expect management to be like, oh, in the context of last year, to be like, oh yeah, we're going to be trash, like the polite way of saying that they did yesterday. But yesterday, even beyond what Pop was saying, basically from the standpoint of a lot of the people who fans don't see, they kind of seemed almost refreshed that like this was a new fun opportunity to work with and something different, something of the times. I feel like a lot of the times we're on here, we're talking about this team in the future. It's like, you got to find an identity. And I know the identity that they have isn't ideal for a lot of fans, but I think it's encouraging, for me at least, that they know what they are. I don't want to say for once, because that would be way too much of an indictment on all the good that they've done in the past, but for once in the context of the past 5 years or so. And I left there yesterday feeling encouraged what I saw.
Yeah. I felt a little encouraged too, because I am glad that they see the writing on the wall. That for me, that's what it was. Okay, you get it, guys, where this franchise stands ahead of this season. It ain't going to be good. And to be honest, Casey, we've been seeing this build up for a while now. I think it started at the Orlando bubble. That was the first time we really started noticing that Popovich is realizing they are who they are, and it's about to get worse. When he proclaimed, when the team was out in Orlando during the pandemic, hey, I'm not here to scout playoff games. I'm here to just scout our players. That was it. And you maybe got a little bit of a spike when they thought they could make the playoffs by getting into the play-in. That they came up short. What is that? 3 years in a row now. So, and you had to pull the plug, and that's, and I get it. I get Spurs fans that don't want to see the team lose, rack up L's. I get that. I understand that. But again, in sports, you got to be either really good or really bad, and that's it. There's no in between, Casey.
Especially in the NBA, because if you're not one of these teams that gets lucky enough to get a generational talent in the middle rounds, outside of like the top 10 to 15 ballpark, this is perennially like what you are. Is just continued mediocrity, that first round purgatory year in and year out. And let's be honest, that's what the Spurs have kind of been for the past 5 years or so, give or take. Because a big reason why is that they could not get out of that area, that not good enough to win a playoff series, not bad enough to get a good pick. And the only way you get out of that half the time is to get lucky in the draft, like the Milwaukee Bucks did. Milwaukee was in a comparable territory for so long, and they get to the middle rounds, and obviously they hit the home run of home runs of getting it right with Giannis. But that doesn't happen. That doesn't happen for 90% of the other teams. And then you get to the bunch, you get to the teams who are always, willing to go the buy route, trade. And that doesn't necessarily work all the time either, especially if you don't have that kind of aforementioned player that's there, that generational player. But the best way to get that generational player, unfortunately, amazingly enough, is just bottom out. And that's what they're doing.
Yeah. And part of bottoming out or assessing what they have and getting better for the future starts in the NBA court, in my opinion, versus the Austin Spurs court. Now, I know there's some Spurs fans may say, oh, no, you got to develop them, get them better, get them out there in Austin and let them cook. We've heard that before, Casey, and then bring them back. Nah, this is different. You got to let them cook in the NBA now. I get marinating a little bit in Austin this year, but I'm talking about cranking up your grill, cranking up your stove to max power on that dial. they got to let these young players really learn their chops in San Antonio versus Austin. When we get back, we're going to talk with Casey. We've been hearing that he was at Spurs Media Day 2022. What were some of his thoughts about that, and what did the players have to say? What did Pop have to say, and much, much more. We're back with Casey Viera. Follow him on Twitter at Casey_Viera. He is my colleague over at Ken's 5 San Antonio. Check him out on the weekends, holding it down on the sports anchor desk. Casey, you were at Media Day. What were some of your impressions about the players? What stood out for you? What would they say? I mean, I heard that Vassell looked like he was talking with Thor and Captain America, and how to get bigger. So there's that. But what did you hear?
I know I kind of implied to it before the break. There was that overall, I like the vibes of, just a group that seem like they have an identity and they know what they are, and they're not going to try to be delusional and tell the media a whole bunch of delusional things that would just kind of make us be like, no, wait guys, what are you guys seeing? Kind of like what we've been hit with like the past 5 years or so.
Yeah. Why are y'all talking about a river parade, huh?
Yeah. Like, you guys are going to win a title. You guys are going to be title contenders to compete in the insane Western Conference led by DeMar DeRozan and unenthused LaMarcus Aldridge. Sure. Okay. Have fun with that, fellas. It wasn't any of that this year. Thankfully. But it was a lot of young guys who, when you get past the Popovich stuff, which I'm sure all the listeners by now have come across on social media, because that was fantastic. I mean, he was that is someone without a doubt who knows what they are. But once you get past that stuff of all the stuff, the fun that Pop had, it was just a good group of guys who seemed to buy into each other. They seem like they all like each other. They seem like they all got along. A group that's young guys who seem very eager and ambitious, while they might be tremendously green though to the NBA process and how things work. It was a good vibe of just these guys, feeling like, hey, it's kind of like, you go to college. It's like you go to college for the first time that freshman year, and you don't know what to expect, and you get there and you're like, man, this is actually really freaking cool. While that's really more applicable for 3 guys largely, as opposed 3, 4, 5 guys compared to the rest of the team. That's kind of like what it felt like to me. Probably the best way to describe it. And it was good. It was fun. I don't want to say they were all aware of what they were from the standpoint that they were going to lose a bunch of games, but that they were there and they realized that they were embracing the moment and not just kind of treating this like another day at the office, like, oh, media day, They were excited to be there. They were excited for the moment. And I think, I don't want to speak for a lot of people, but I speak for a lot of people. And they said, I think they probably left with that sentiment as well.
The only close to delusional moment, in my opinion, was Primo saying that this team is gunning for the playoffs. Now, I say delusional just barely, but I know he has to say that. He is a competitor. He's not going to come out there going, yeah, we're tanky for Wemby. They ain't going to say that, but that was the closest.
I think that, I'm sorry to cut you off. I think that's true though. I think the way they're thinking, I think that's true though. They're like, okay, we're going to go out there with the intent to lose every single night. No, they're not going to say that. And there are a bunch of dudes who are trying to prove themselves, and they probably believe that they're, they know that they're not going to try to go out there and get run out of the gym 82 times a year. They're going to be a group of guys. Are they aware that they're not necessarily the Bucks or the Warriors? Yeah. But they're going to be a group of guys who want to compete and try to do something in their minds that's attainable. Yeah. I mean, to us, it sounds a little silly, but in the context of what you think of them in the locker room itself, I wasn't overly bothered by it personally.
No.
But, yeah.
No. One thing I want to talk to you about was Pirtle's comments regarding trade rumors. I was hoping somebody would have asked him. If I was there, I think I would have brought up how he spoke to Austrian media saying that he's aware that this is his contract year. that he's aware, that he made statements that he will explore his options if he's still a Spur at the end of the season. But, he did address that, saying that it's something he's lived with. Hell, he got traded to San Antonio. He was part of a trade rumor from Toronto at the time to the Spurs, and that happened. He seemed to, now he's the oldest statement now. It's him. It's Jakob Poeltl. He's the longest tenure Spur now. That's how fast things are changing in San Antonio. But I got to ask you, though, Casey, are you buying or selling that he's going to be a Spur at the end of the season?
I think I have to say he's probably not going to be on the team.
Yeah.
I think going into that contract year, they're going to be bad. If he hits free agency, he's probably leaving anyways.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say probably a no. He's not on the team.
Yeah, because if you're Brian Wright, you should see the writing on the wall that either he's going to walk for nothing or you get something for him now. And if I'm the Spurs, I'm holding out his trade value to the bitter end on deadline day. Like, okay, you Phoenix Suns, you Chicago Bulls, to Raptors, who reportedly been chasing him to come back. What do you want for him? And I'm not going to be surprised whatsoever if that's the biggest Spurs deal, is the trading of him and Josh Richardson too. I don't think they may end up Spurs end of the season. But overall, yes, it was a very lighthearted media day overall. From the videos that the Spurs released to the media after it was done, you can see everybody was kind of in a good spirits. They understood they are who they are. They don't have any pressure to win a title. My takeaway was still that Popovich statement where he was already starting to talk about his future. That I blew my mind. I was like, wait, what did he just say? I was like, okay, I guess we're there already. We're technically here, so it should not come to a shock, Popovich. Somebody ask you a follow-up on that. But all in all, good stuff. He is Casey Viera. Make sure to follow him on Twitter at Casey_Viera. Tell us what's going on over there in your neck of the woods over at Ken's 5.
A lot of the things that are the same thing going on in your neck of the woods. with the
you
Spurs
got
front
football, you got high school football.
Well, I was going to say the only exception though is we got that football thing going on.
Yeah.
That's picking up a little bit of steam. Got to tell you what, man. I'm over UT. I got to hit up the Locked On. There's a lot. I'm assuming there's a Locked On Longhorns, right?
Yeah.
I got to get in touch with these guys because we got to have a conversation about Steve Sarkisian.
You're not a Giants fan, are you?
No. I'm
you're not,
Las
okay.
Vegas Raiders.
You're a Raiders fan.
I got to hit up my. Yeah, I was gonna say I got to hit up my boy. What's his name? Your boy Q over there, Locked On Raiders.
Yeah, exactly.
I got to hit him up too. I got to hit him. That's on my list. He doesn't know who I am, but you know what? That's another guy. I got to hit up because
and technically you'll be doing work because the Tegna owns the Locked On Network. It's family, yeah.
Yeah,
so
it's in the family.
You can bill for that.
Yeah, right. Send him my phone bill.
Yeah, exactly. But he is, again, Casey Viera. Follow him on Twitter at Casey_Viera. Check him out. Holding down the sports desk for Ken's 5, San Antonio. What do you got? Thursday through Sunday, right?
It's always fluid. But on the desk,
all right.
On the desk usually it's Thursday. We'll say Thursday through Saturday.
Yep. All right. Good enough. Hey, before I let everybody go, though, Locked On Spurs is going to be giving away another fan prize. Good friend of the show and San Antonio radio personality, Chuck Vance. He graciously donated a free T-shirt and sticker combo package for one lucky winner. Find out on this Friday's episode of Locked On Spurs how to win. And we thank you for making Locked On Spurs your first listen each and every day. Again, free and available wherever you get podcasts. We're likely to be talking more about training camp, day 1, day 2. We're going to be seeing and hearing what the players have to say. and much, much more in the next episodes of Locked On Spurs. And likely you're going to be hearing a lot more Casey now that the offseason is pretty much over. So Casey, you're going to be getting those texts and those messages from me like, can you do Los? Can you do Los? Can you do Los?
Yeah.
That may spike in the coming days, Casey. So you've been warned. But everybody
noted.
Noted exactly. So make your second listen on the Locked On Network, the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Show. Josh Lloyd hosts the #1 daily fantasy basketball show on the planet, free and available wherever you get podcasts. So for Casey Viera, I am Jeff Garcia. We're going to put a lock in this episode of Locked On Spurs.